Okay, good evening and welcome to the July 13th meeting of the Northwest San Pedro Neighborhood Council's Planning and Land Use Committee. I see Jason Herring, Chuck Hart, Linda Alexander, Pat Nave, Alec Norman, and Diana Nave. So we have a quorum. And we also have one attendee tonight, Ted Mann, and possibly more as time goes on. So
can we promote him to a panelist?
Well, we could. We could.
Well,
What, so I will allow him to talk at least. So what we have before us tonight is a draft letter regarding the proposed marketplace at Target. It's quite a lengthy letter, and I'm not sure how many of you had a chance to read it all the way through. I'm hoping that you did. I particularly want to thank everyone who gave input into this draft, particularly Phil Nicolay, who helped with all of the environmental issues, and Alan Franz, who gave input into the landscaping section. And so I'm hoping that everyone had a chance to review the draft. Do we want to put the draft up?
yeah.
Jason, can you put the draft up on the screen so we have it there?
I thought it was remarkably impressive.
Well, thank you.
The depth and breadth of it was really impressive.
Well, that's because there were a lot of people that had input into it.
I
I
wondered. I know Jason does a lot of that than you do, but I thought that's a lot of words in there.
Oh, yeah, unfortunately, we've got the red line version. Do we have the other line, the other version? The clean version, yeah, that's much better. So I guess, I can.
Can you make it bigger so we can read it?
I can kind of walk us through it. I can just take questions, whichever you all prefer.
It's all self-explanatory. It's all self-explanatory to me. It's a wonderful job, and thank you for everyone involved.
Thank you, Chuck.
Me too.
So do we have anyone that wants me to walk through it? Do we have anyone that wants to make a motion?
I make a motion that this committee approve this letter to be submitted.
Okay, I cannot see the hands. Wait a minute, let me just check if there's any hands. Ted, do you want, let me wait and ask if is there a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
Who is that?
Alec, by the way.
Alec. Okay, so I asked for comments. Ted, do you have any comments on it?
I do, only to the extent that I thought it was really well written and comprehensive. I think, there's a couple of typos here and there, but I wasn't really focusing on that kind of minutia. And I'm sure in the editing process those will be picked up. But I thought it captured the essence of what the problems are with what is being proposed behind my house. So I appreciate you and your committee and the thorough job that they've done in pointing those things out and responding to the what I felt was fairly disingenuous responses by the developers to what the city had asked of them.
Okay, with that, are there any other comments or questions? I don't see any. So we will take a vote for approval of this letter. Jason? Jason, how do you vote? I'm not hearing you, Jason.
Got a thumbs up.
He said a thumbs up, okay. Chuck Hart,
Yes,
Linda Alexander,
Yes.
Pat Nave.
Thumbs up.
Okay. Alec Norman,
Yes.
yes. And Diana Nave votes yes. So that has carried. Okay, the second item on our agenda, here I was prepared to walk through it. The second item on our agenda was to talk about the self-storage. And while we were going to consider a letter, I think we decided we want to discuss it, and then Jason's going to prepare a letter after our thoughts. So at the joint meeting, we heard the presentation on the proposed self-storage there on Miraflores. What did people think?
is that a question?
Yeah,
Well, I didn't see any objection to it. It looks like an improvement to me, but, I'm open to listening to any complaints, but doesn't seem to be any complaints from the neighborhood, the neighbor next door. Everyone seems to be in favor of it. So we're addressing the greening issue. We're addressing all our concerns. It sounds good to me.
okay. Any other comments or thoughts about it?
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay, sorry.
now we can see you too.
My microphone wasn't working. Okay, so I'll just share the screen here. Okay, so this is the corner where the proposed storage facility would be. And earlier we were just talking about, I had brought up that there's this very nice row of these old growth pine trees here, which they had said they were going to cut down.
Ooh.
And I had mentioned that I would prefer, personally, I said, I don't think that's a great idea. I don't know if the rest of the committee feels that way, but these are old growth trees. They have deep roots. They don't need any watering. They had claimed that they were an invasive tree or something. Someone had told them, and so they should cut them down and put up something else. Personally, I feel that this wonderful tree line here should be kept. It somewhat breaks up the visual of anything that goes into this spot. And also is a very nice, as you can see, casting a lot of shade on a hot afternoon. So I don't think it's a bad thing.
Is it on the property even?
Well, it's on the property side of the sidewalk.
And the developer did say they were planning to cut them down, so.
Yeah.
I mean, his place goes, do we have a schematic that shows it goes back that far? I thought it was just the buildings on the corner.
Oh, no, it goes back. It goes all the way back to the park line.
Yeah.
The only building coming down was the building on the corner.
Oh,
Jason,
Oh,
that's a wonderful observation.
yeah.
Didn't notice, that certainly wasn't visible as we looked at the last meeting. But yeah, why would you take those down? And it didn't look like they'd be in the way.
They're very tall and narrow, right? So they don't really bother.
Yeah,
So
so we may want to make a comment to that effect.
that's a strong comment.
A strong comment to that effect.
So that was that thought. But then I thought, well, don't we have enough storage areas around here? Just kind of what would be the best use for this place is, we should be giving our opinions on planning and land use, right? So, I mean, looking at this, we've got all these storage spaces, like literally one is just up the street from there, right? We've got these two self-storages right here, one right up the street. There's another one supposedly going in by, Home Depot, right? There's another one that's supposed to be slated for here. There's another one right here.
Yeah.
I mean, do we want this to become a warehouse district of storage, or what kind of neighborhood do we want to try to envision here? So personally, I don't like the storage facility. I thought something that would help activate the street in a more subtle way to make it more of a walkable neighborhood, maybe like a coffee shop or something, some other mixed use, or if there's storage behind it, at least something that helps activate it, considering that this is the entrance to a park, right? And we're not making any more park space, right, in LA. And this is an entrance to one of our parks. And do we want a warehouse and a storage facility to border that, or do we want something that's a little more active, right? That can more cater to potential park visitors, such as a coffee shop, which comes to mind, right? So that was kind of my thoughts on the land of that particular spot there. Now, I think they would actually have to get a zoning change, because right now it's not. Is that the case? What was the situation, Diana?
They have to have a conditional use permit because of it being a storage facility.
Okay.
The zoning there is for industrial, for light industrial. It's not zoned residential, which is one of the issues before. It's zoned light industrial. But because of it being storage, it has to have a conditional use permit. Just like the drive-through restaurant requires, even though it was an industrial commercial area, requires a conditional use permit by virtue of being a drive-through. So one of the comments that the council office made was that they hoped that this would be something that created jobs, and that, of course, the storage facility doesn't. The good thing about the storage facility is that it provides that buffer to the dog park. And it might be better than some other industrial uses that might be proposed. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, almost anything that would be built there that's more than one story would provide a buffer. So I'm not
Chuck
sure.
has his hand raised.
Say that again, Linda.
Chuck has his hand raised, and then Pat.
Oh, good. Why can I not see hands? Chuck?
Well, I get the impression, this doesn't mean anything, but I think it's adjacent to mentioning those trees. But I qualify my statement by saying, I agree, those trees should stay as part of the our recommendation or advice.
Yeah.
Got lost here.
Pat?
Well, Jason raises an interesting point. I think we have to do a little bit more looking into this. I think it's probably going to be hard. It would seem to me that if a use fits within the zoning description, it'd be hard for us to specify, what use can be made of it. I guess we could oppose the conditional use permit because it's going to be storage. I think maybe we could be looking at entrance ways to parks would be persuasive in order to keep the trees. The other thing is that the demand for storage, as I understand it from some of the materials that have been submitted to us, is because people who are moving into apartments don't have enough space where they live to store their things, and so that's why there's such demand for storage. Because we've had several storage people tell us that that's where the demand is for off-site storage. So maybe we ought to be talking to these developers that come to us and say, look, you're creating pressure elsewhere in our community for storage instead of taking care of your storage needs of your tenants on site and pressing them to provide more space. That's it. Put my hand down now.
I mean, as a transition from like residential to the restaurant and the busy street, it just seems like a harsh transition to have just a warehouse basically sitting there.
Yeah.
How much luck has city council have in making that kind of a request or demand? I like the idea. I just wonder
I know
how
the
much
council,
impact we have.
I know that down on Beacon's, that Beacon Street, Beacon's Landing, where that project is, the council office opposed that being self-storage. The council office did on their own, and it is not going to be self-storage. The people that were looking at it moved away because the council office didn't want it to be self-storage. the council office does have a fair amount of influence, and if they really get behind something that requires a conditional use. But I don't know, you know, on this one, if they would.
What's that on the other side of the street? Is that also light industrial?
You talk about that side there? Yes,
Yeah.
right to the corner there. And then there's that little alley that connects over that they put, see the alley? That's the alley that then goes over to Channel. People take over to Channel. And those lots up there will eventually have housing on them. The vacant lots you see will become housing.
It's been vacant for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
The
So
same owner, isn't it? The guy that's selling.
I'm curious, because I wasn't at the board meeting Monday night. Alec, did you talk about this at the board meeting when you gave the report?
I just said that it happened and there was no real feedback on that. It was just, that's what I said, that this project was coming.
Mm. Okay. Yeah, I wondered what kind of feedback there was. And unfortunately, the person, oh, maybe he's on now. The person who lives in this area is not on. Craig Goldfarb has joined the meeting.
Fine.
Okay, no, not the panelist.
Well, I think generally that Jason's a genius, so I'm probably always support his point of view, even if it doesn't look like it would get us very far.
Well, one thing we might do is support the idea that part of it be there'd be a coffee shop in the front. It's a pretty long lot, isn't it, Jason? For
It is a pretty deep lot.
you could have something on the corner and then have the rest of it be storage.
May I? Can you hear me?
Yes, I didn't see your hand up though. I'm
Well, it
sorry.
was, I have to recuse myself because this is within 500 feet of my home, so I can't discuss this. So I
Oh,
want to say that, and I've been holding for about 5 minutes, waiting for you to recognize me.
I'm sorry, because I didn't see
Have your
you.
hand
I'm
up.
sorry. It's within 500 feet of your home. Okay.
So it is a relatively deep lot, so it would still be possible to accommodate some sort of activation of the street in a nicer transition than just moving it directly to a warehouse. Now, I'm sure people are happy to have something replacing the kind of junk lot that it is now. So there's anything is better than what's there. But we can aspire to have something that's the best possible solution as opposed to just something better.
Yeah.
Chuck, did you still have your hand? Is it your hand up from before, or did you just put it up?
It's new, it's new.
Okay.
It's a relatively clean use of the property. And there could be other proposals that'd be a lot more undesirable, let's say. So I emphasize the fact that the neighborhood seems to be in support of it. So
Well,
that's where I stand.
I would say one person supports it, but I don't think the neighborhood is correct. So just the immediate neighbor was the only one
Well,
asked. I'm not sure that's
the guy who heads the neighborhood watch was in our meeting and was supportive of it. I thought he was going to be here tonight, and I'm sorry he hasn't joined us yet. Maybe he's going to join us later. I don't know. Pat Nave.
For some clarity, is it just this?
can't hear you, Pat.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
That's
Yeah,
much-
much better.
Is it just these two gray topped buildings and then it goes way back along the tree line?
wraps around this little this small lot here. It wraps around 817, 819. I don't know if this shows it now. Well, up you can kind of see it on here. You can see the outline. property's
Oh.
somewhat L-shaped.
The
Okay.
Goddess
Oh.
Divine Gift Shop?
What is that? Yeah,
It's a lot bigger lot than I remembered it being.
yeah, that's big.
It- Yeah, it's a significantly sized, deep lot. It's not real wide, but it's quite deep.
Did the person who, from the, the neighborhood watch committee, did he represent that the neighbors were in favor of this, or?
No, he was favorable to it. That's all I know. And he's not here to speak, unfortunately. He had planned to be, so I'm not sure what happened. Well, let's see, does someone want to make a motion for what we should do? And let's see what happens to the motion.
I'll make a motion that we strongly encourage. Well, there's two things we need to strongly encourage. The retention of the row of pines and the idea of a community gathering such as a coffee shop at the corner at Miraflores and Cabrillo as part of their building.
Okay, well, I'll second the motion.
Okay, any other comments on the motion before we vote on it?
I'd like to propose an amendment.
Yes, Pat?
Is there some way that we could ask the fellow that spoke in favor of it from the neighborhood, whether he can do a survey of his neighborhood and find out what the people over there think? Whether they're in favor
Sure,
of
we
it?
can ask him.
I'd like to see that, what that showed before we took it to the neighborhood council. I'd hate to see the neighborhood council support it and then find out that the neighborhood is really against it.
Yeah. We can ask Frank to do that. What we can do, because what I'm really trying to do is just get a sense of the committee now so we can figure out where we want to go with it. Not to take it as a final motion at this point, but maybe to take it as a recommendation to discuss and then get a letter developed.
You want me to withdraw the motion?
Hmm?
Would you like me to withdraw the motion? if we're
No,
not-
I don't want you to withdraw the motion.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think the motion, are you willing to accept Pat's amendment that we then ask Frank Devona
That we first ask, yeah,
to do the survey of the neighborhood
yes,
on this particular idea?
right. You bet.
Okay, so with that as part of the motion, let me see. Any other comments? Okay, Jason,
Yes. Hello.
what, Chuck?
Yeah, I support Pat's idea of surveying the surrounding neighborhood. I think it's the most relevant issue because this area is an industrial neighborhood adjoining a residential neighborhood, and we're far reaching for us to get involved in that, really. So I support Pat's idea of surveying the immediate surrounding neighborhood residences.
Are you saying that should be done? We should do that apart from the rest of the motion?
Yes, before the motion, yes.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think Diana, I think Pat's idea should stand on its own, and we really don't need the other motion at this time because we can't do it. We're not going to do anything with that motion until we find out if we can
Yeah.
find out what the neighborhood has to say.
I think you're right, Linda.
What if we did a motion that just said we strongly urge that the trees, if something's built there, that the trees be retained, and just make that the motion.
Well, I think if we're gonna come back and make a further motion, we might as well just hold it and put it with
Right.
the second part of the motion at this point.
Right.
So how do we characterize this survey of the local residents? Do we put some verbiage in there such that there's ways, to do it, right? So storage facility, yes, no, or storage facility with some sort of, neighborhood facility as a frontage to it, for example.
Right,
Yeah.
right, with both.
We'd have to word that in a certain way so they'd understand, hey, maybe the thought is, well, storage facility is better than the junk heap that's there now, right? But
The question is, if we ask this Frank if he will do the survey and he says no, is there somebody on the committee that's willing to go do the survey?
How about the outreach committee?
I don't know, Pat, we could ask him. Is
He
there
can't
anyone on this
afford-
committee that's willing to do the survey if we need to?
He can't afford to say no.
So that's always the question, who's gonna do the work, so. We'll ask Frank. He may say no. Because he lives way around the corner from there, but he takes a real interest in that property and has in the past. If he says no, I can ask the outreach committee, and if they say no, well, we don't have anyone willing to do the survey.
I'm more than 500 feet, but I don't live that far. See, that little dot's my house. So I'm just over here.
Yeah,
Survey me too.
so yeah, and I know you don't,
It's kind of part of the whole same park network that I'm attached to.
so we have a plan, sort of. The question is who's gonna actually do the work on it, and if we can get it done, that's a great idea.
If we can outsource it to this Frank fellow, problem solved. If not, we'll have to take another step.
Okay. Okay,
I think the wording is roughly, I think we kind of roughly agree on the wording, so.
Mhm.
then we have one more item on the agenda, and Alec is gonna present that.
Okay, Jason, can you share the draft CIS for me, please?
Oh, hang on a second. Pull that up. Draft CIS.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's the right one. So basically, just to give you context, this is very similar to the one we already passed regarding digital billboards being developed. And in this case, I believe it's roughly 50 billboards that LA is currently proposing on the Metro project that just is starting but hasn't completed the EIR. But basically, the gist of this CIS is saying that we would be opposed to the motion that is instructing the planning department to create these digital offsite signs, essentially, and which would be on the Metro sites. And then the reasoning behind this in the next part is saying the city should not be making more digital signs, as we've stated previously in other CISs, because they should be focusing on the ones they already have. Obviously, none would be preferable, but if they already have them up there, might as well focus on that one instead of keeping creating more. And then the next thing is obviously these ones are digital and oftentimes they have scrolling images, sometimes audio. They even collect data, so that's great. But basically, they could also be a distraction for drivers while they're driving. So adding more and more, especially near Metro, could possibly create a risk for danger. And then the other thing is, like I said before, they have not completed their EIR process for Metro in the project. And so if they create this motion to have the digital signage and lock into the contract, then if there's some kind of problem, then they can't reverse that. So that would also mean that they couldn't get out of the contract if they do it too soon.
So I will take that as a motion from Alec. Is there a second?
Yes, I'll motion, yeah.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second. What a sluggish group when it comes. Speak up.
So we'll then ask for comments or questions.
I don't get why you think this would be
Excuse me a
distraction.
minute, Craig, would you raise your hand just like,
Well, everybody has been
Chris done.
talking and nobody's been raising their hand, so I figured I can just talk. So if you're gonna apply it to everybody or just to me?
I was applying it to everybody.
Let's just apply it to Craig.
Chuck,
Oh, that's what you've
Chuck,
been doing.
no,
You- Pat's been talking, Linda was talking, everybody talked, and then
Okay.
I mentioned one thing and you say, oh, you gotta raise your hand.
So raise your
So-
hand.
that was because I also saw another hand up before you opened your mouth, Craig, and that was
Yeah,
Chuck.
And
then
what about the
I will-
conversation that was just
Chuck-
going on before this? Like, pick what you want. If you want to be consistent, be consistent. If you can be inconsistent, be inconsistent. Whichever way you want to
Okay.
do it.
I'll try to be consistent. Chuck,
I would like clarification about 3 sentences of the motion.
Sure.
Please clarify in 3 sentences.
Which 3 sentences though?
Just make it
Like-
simple.
oh, you're asking him to summarize the motion in 3 sentences.
Oh, okay. Basically, if you support this CIS, you're strongly opposed to the creation of more digital billboards on metro properties, which is roughly 50 new digital billboards.
Thank you.
Okay, Craig. I don't see your hand, but I did say you'd be next. There's your hand. Craig,
My hand's been up for a while, but as it is. Anyways, I don't see as how this is a distraction. But I pass digital signs all the time. So I'm wondering what data can you point to that this will be a distraction to drivers? And why do you think it won't be, why do you think that they should work on increasing revenues on what they currently have versus creating new revenues?
Okay, well, I'll address the first thing with it being a distraction. Obviously, I'm talking more about in the downtown area, more where there's streets that are very close connected. A lot of these billboards are going to be on the metro sites, which is near those hubs where there's lots more cars and traffic. So it's distracted for basically the drivers, and it could also be the people. So let's say it's a video of something, or not a video, I guess it's considered a GIF, but of that ad, it switches and then there's a loud noise playing. Obviously, I'm not saying this is going to kill anybody, but I'm saying this is increasing the risk of danger because if you're driving, there's lots of different things that could happen, right? So if you're texting while driving, that's a form of distracted driving. If there's a billboard that changes screen and you're like trying to look at it, right, that could be a distraction. So in that case, I'm not saying it's going to be major. I'm just saying it's increasing the risk. I'm being pretty vague about this on purpose, but I want to point out that this is just another distraction. So having more would also increase that risk.
Do
And
you
for
have any
the-
data to back
This is
that
just
up?
a logical.
This is
a
just an
logical thing.
opinion. No, it's not logical. It's opinion. That's specious.
Okay, sure.
I mean, if it was logical, there are plenty of these all over the country, so there should be some data available.
Well,
Okay, thank you.
actually.
okay, I won't address that. That's fine. What was your other question?
His other question was why you said that they should focus on getting more revenue from existing signs rather than new signs.
Well, the main thing is realistically that we already have those signs, and it's more like when you expand in something and then you kind of forget about the old stuff you have. So if we already have revenue, or if we already have signs, might as well focus on those ones that you already have contracts with. Everything's already known. There's no new implications being added here. So these signs are here. They're already there. They're already basically the impact is already known. Everything's there. So more like focus on getting the contracts for the ad company or whatever and focus on that rather than adding more and more and more, just increase profits. Just even economically, it doesn't make sense to not focus on what you already have, and keeping adding more money towards that is just, I don't agree with that.
So Jason, I saw your hand next.
I was curious. So when you said 50 metro properties, did you mean 50 properties within San Pedro?
I meant like physical digital billboards. Let me get the stat real quick.
In LA. It's in
In
LA.
LA,
All of
yeah.
LA? How many of
It's
those?
Not in San Pedro.
No, it's not. This is going to be like 34 freeway facing structures and 22 non-freeway facing structures. So essentially almost 50 billboards will be made.
Okay, that was my question.
Okay, with that, I think we'll take a vote on the proposed CIS. And I think the idea is then to take this to the joint committee at the end of the month, if it passes. So, let's see. Jason, how do you vote?
Yes.
Chuck Hart,
Abstain.
Linda Alexander,
Yes,
Pat Nave,
Yes,
Rock is absent. Alec Norman,
Yes.
yes. Craig Goldfarb,
Abstain.
abstain, okay. And I will vote yes, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yes, and 2 abstention. Correct, so motion passes. That gets us to updates, and I really don't have any particular updates this month. Does anybody else have any updates?
Oh.
No? Okay, that gets us to public comment. Does anyone have any public comment? Seeing none. The next meeting is the joint committee meeting.
Sorry, is public comment also items not on the agenda?
Yeah,
Okay, I have an item not on the agenda.
yes, that's public comment. Go ahead.
So Dick Platkin had a pretty interesting article recently in City Watch about the fact that we don't have an urban forest plan. Well, a lot of cities do. This has been somewhat close to home for me as I've watched Peck Park light on fire several times within the last 6 to 8 months. And I've also seen many of the trees that the city has tried to plant die because no one waters them and maintains them. And he goes into some detail about this, right? Examples from other cities which have urban forest plans, and they actually have an arborist that is managing these, and the city's managing care until the trees are rooted and are able to survive on their own. But Los Angeles does not do that. We plant the trees and then hope that volunteer agencies or organizations or just friendly neighbors will water them. So hence we've lost a lot of trees. He cites that all these million tree publicity stunts that have been proposed by mayors in the past has resulted in a net of 65,000 trees have been planted, right? So a little bit short of the million that they've been fostering. And our trees, as you can see, are dying. There's a lot that have died in Peck Park. Some street trees are dead. The greening San Pedro plan really didn't green very much. So he proposes in here that LA actually appoint an actual arborist to manage this. And unlike, other city organizations, they don't have volunteers asking neighbors to turn their yards into bookcases, jacuzzis into public libraries. He makes some little snarky comments about all these other public services don't rely on the people to manage them themselves. So why with these tree plantings do they? So I would like to just have this, I'd like to share this article and perhaps entertain the idea of a letter to the council to try to establish this as a formal organization run by an arborist and have a plan to maintain the trees they plant.
So that is something then that we could put on the agenda for our next meeting, Jason, and you could draft a letter. The one thing that comment I have is that the city does have
No
an
comment
arborist.
on non-agenda items.
So this is, I'm going to share this with the group, and if you want, you can post it on the site, and we can discuss a proposal or a motion or a letter.
At the next meeting.
That's all I had.
Okay,
I have a hand raised.
any other public comment, non-agenda items?
Hand raised.
I see two hands. Linda,
Yeah, I just want to ask Jason, make sure that I can have it on, that I get that email,
Yep,
please.
will do.
Thank you.
Chuck,
Without objection, I hope. Congratulations to the Northwest San Pedro, I'm sorry, San Pedro Peninsula Homeowners United and its other appellants in their successful lawsuit against the Port of Los Angeles for hopefully making the air quality improvements required by the Port of Los Angeles in the future.
yes, congratulations.
Thank you. It's been a long fight.
Do people have questions about, well, okay, I was gonna say, you may want to say a couple more sentences about what that's about.
Eh,
Okay, any other public comments? Or comments on non-agenda items? Seeing none, the next meeting is the joint committee meeting on Wednesday, July 27th. And there's somebody coming from city planning to talk about the changes, the redo of the zoning code that I mentioned at the last meeting. And there's someone coming from the council office to talk about the parking situation in downtown San Pedro.
Oh.
And then our next Northwest meeting, if we need one, will be August the 10th. And with that, thank you all, and we stand adjourned.
Thank you.
Night,
thank
everyone.
you.
Night all.
Night, night.